Admiral Zexthara stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Void's Wrath, her forearms crossed as she studied the tactical display. The holographic projection showed the outer rim of the galaxy, where rebel forces had been causing trouble for months. Her scaled face twisted into what humans might call a frown, though the expression looked far more menacing on her reptilian features. "Report," she hissed, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had crushed 17 different species under the Empire's boot. Commander Veltak, an insectoid officer with compound eyes that reflected the blue glow of the displays, stepped forward. "Admiral, our scouts have detected unusual energy signatures in the Kepler sector. The readings don't match any known rebel technology." Zexthara's tail lashed behind her. "Unusual how? The power output is significant. Our analysts estimate it could rival a heavy cruiser, but the ship appears to be much smaller." Veltak's mandibles clicked nervously. "There's something else, Admiral. The hull composition is completely unknown. Our sensors can't penetrate it." The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed. "Show me." The main display shifted to show long-range sensor data. A ship hung in the void, and Zexthara had to admit it looked strange. Where Imperial vessels were sleek and predatory, this craft appeared blocky and utilitarian. It had an almost primitive appearance, as if someone had welded metal plates together without caring about aesthetics. "It's ugly," she declared. "What species builds something so crude?" "Unknown, Admiral. We've run it through every database. No matches." Zexthara studied the readings more carefully. The ship was indeed smaller than their dreadnought, perhaps a quarter the size. Yet the energy signatures were troubling. Could it be some new rebel superweapon? "Possible, Admiral. The rebellion has been growing bolder lately." The Admiral remembered the recent losses. 3 Imperial battle groups had vanished in the outer rim. Each time, the only evidence left behind was debris and confused reports from survivors about impossible enemy capabilities. High Command was growing impatient. "Set course for the contact. Full battle group." She turned to her communications officer, a pale humanoid with large black eyes. "Signal the Death's Edge and Star Crusher. We investigate this anomaly together." Hours later, the 3 massive Imperial warships dropped out of hyperspace near the unknown vessel. Zexthara felt satisfaction seeing her ships arranged in standard attack formation. Each dreadnought was over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Whatever this strange ship was, it would surrender or be destroyed. "Admiral," her sensor officer called out, "the unknown vessel is powering weapons. Multiple energy spikes detected. Impossible. It's outnumbered 3 to 1. But, even as she spoke, Zexthara felt a chill. The energy readings were climbing to levels that defied logic. "Open a channel," she ordered. The main screen flickered, and, suddenly, Zexthara was looking at something that made her step backward in shock. The bridge of the enemy ship appeared primitive by Imperial standards, with exposed conduits and what looked like manually operated controls. But it was the crew that stunned her. They were bipedal, like many species, but their skin was a strange pale pink color. They had hair on their heads in various shades, and their eyes were small and forward-facing. Most disturbing of all, they looked completely calm despite facing 3 Imperial dreadnoughts. A human stepped forward. He was tall and lean, wearing what appeared to be a simple gray uniform with minimal decoration. His face bore scars that spoke of combat experience, and his dark eyes held a confidence that Zexthara found deeply unsettling. "I'm Captain Marcus Stone of the UES Defiance," the human said in accented but clear Galactic standard. "You're trespassing in human colonial space." Zexthara's translator worked overtime with the unfamiliar terms. Human? Colonial space? She had never heard of either. "I am Admiral Zexthara of the Galactic Empire. You will surrender your vessel immediately or face destruction." The human called Stone actually smiled. "Admiral, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. You have 10 minutes to withdraw from this system before we consider you a threat." Laughter erupted across the Imperial bridge. Veltak's mandibles clattered in amusement. "Admiral, should we destroy them quickly or make an example?" But Zexthara wasn't laughing. Something about the human's demeanor reminded her of veteran predators. Too calm, too confident. "Human, you face 3 Imperial dreadnoughts. Each of my ships outguns your vessel 50 to 1. 67 to 1. Actually, Stone corrected. I've run the calculations. Your weapons are impressive, Admiral. Very efficient energy-to-destruction ratios. We've been studying Imperial technology for some time. Studying. Zextara felt that chill again. How long have you been watching us? Oh, about 18 months. Ever since your scouts started probing the Outer Rim. We've been curious about your capabilities. Stone's expression remained pleasant. We've learned quite a bit. The Admiral's tactical mind raced. If these humans had been observing Imperial operations for over a year, what else did they know? You claim this is your space, but we've detected no colonies, no infrastructure. We're nomadic by nature. Our colonies aren't the sort you'd recognize. Stone gestured casually. But this system has been under human protection for 6 months now. We've grown rather fond of it. Protection? Veltak chittered. What could primitives like you protect anything from? Stone's smile faded slightly. Commander, I'd be careful about assumptions. Your empire has made many of them lately. Most have proven costly. Zextara felt ice in her veins. The missing battle groups. That was you. Partially. Humans aren't the only species interested in limiting Imperial expansion. Stone's tone became more serious. Admiral, your empire has a choice to make. Withdraw to your established territories, or continue to probe the Outer Rim. But understand that every probe, every scout ship, every minor incursion will be met with appropriate response. You're threatening the Empire? Zextara's voice rose. With one ship. Oh, Admiral. This isn't one ship. Stone touched a control on his chair. Please show them, Sarah. The display changed to show long-range tactical sensors. Zextara stared in growing horror as contact after contact appeared on her screens. Dozens of ships, all with the same blocky, primitive design. They had been there all along, somehow invisible to Imperial sensors. Stealth technology, she breathed. Among other things, Stone confirmed. Humans have a saying, Admiral. Speak softly and carry a big stick. We've been speaking softly for 18 months. The tactical display updated with mass readings. Each human ship was smaller than an Imperial dreadnought, but there were 47 of them. And the energy signatures. Impossible power levels, Veltak whispered. Admiral, their smallest ship is putting out readings equivalent to our main guns. Stone nodded approvingly. Your sensor officer is quite good. Yes, humans have approached energy generation differently than most species. We're rather proud of our fusion technology. Fusion? Zextara had heard the term in theoretical discussions. Most species used controlled antimatter reactions for ship power. Fusion was considered primitive, inefficient. Controlled stellar cores, essentially. We've gotten quite good at building small stars. Stone's casual tone made the statement even more terrifying. Each of our ships carries power equivalent to what you might find in a star system's main reactor. The Imperial Admiral felt her worldview shifting. Everything the Empire knew about technological development said this was impossible. Yet the sensor readings didn't lie. Your weapons signatures, she said slowly, show coherent energy projection at levels that should require antimatter warheads. Oh, we have those too. But plasma containment has always been a human specialty. We've had practice. Stone seemed to be enjoying the conversation. 10,000 years of warfare tends to accelerate weapons development. 10,000 years. Zextara species had achieved spaceflight only 3,000 years ago. How old is your civilization? Old enough to have made every mistake at least twice. We've learned from most of them. Stone's expression grew more serious. Admiral, your empire is young. Ambitious. We understand the drive to expand, to conquer. Humans went through that phase ourselves. Went through. We learned that conquest creates more problems than it solves. Now we prefer to be left alone. Stone gestured to the tactical display. But we're very good at ensuring our solitude. Zextara studied the human ship formations. They showed tactical sophistication that rivaled Imperial doctrine. No, not rivaled. Exceeded. The formations were layered, with overlapping fields of fire and mutual support patterns that her own fleet couldn't match. What do you want? She asked finally. Withdrawal. Complete Imperial withdrawal from the Outer Rim. In exchange, humans will remain in our own territories and pose no threat to the Empire proper. The Empire doesn't negotiate with primitives. Stone's smile returned, but it wasn't pleasant. Admiral, with respect, your Empire has been negotiating with us for months. Every time you've probed our space, we've responded proportionally. Missing scouts, disabled patrol ships, warning shots across the bow. We've been very diplomatic. Zexthara remembered the reports. Ships found drifting with power disabled, but crews unharmed. Mysterious equipment failures during reconnaissance missions. Warning signals in perfect galactic standard telling Imperial ships to withdraw. That was you. All of it. Humans prefer escalation to be gradual. It gives everyone time to make reasonable decisions. Stone's tone hardened. But our patience isn't infinite. The Admiral looked at her tactical display again. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts faced nearly 50 human ships. The smart move was obvious, but retreat would mean questions from High Command. Courts-martial. Disgrace. I need proof of your capabilities, she said finally. The Empire won't believe reports of superior human technology without demonstration. Stone nodded as if he'd expected this. Sarah, please target the asteroid field. Grid reference Gamma 7. Full power demonstration. One of the human ships, barely a third the size of an Imperial dreadnought, turned toward a cluster of asteroids several thousand kilometers away. Its main guns charged with energy readings that made the Imperial sensors scream warnings. The blast, when it came, wasn't the coherent beam Zexthara expected. Instead, streams of superheated plasma lanced out, each bolt carrying the destructive power of a ship-killer missile. The asteroids didn't just explode. They vaporized. In seconds, a field of rocky debris spanning hundreds of kilometers simply ceased to exist. Effective range? She asked quietly. That was minimum power at approximately 1/3 maximum range. At full power, effective engagement range is roughly equivalent to a light minute. A light minute. Imperial weapons were devastating at light-second ranges. These humans could engage targets 60 times farther away. Rate of fire? Continuous. The plasma stream can be sustained as long as our reactors hold out. Stone paused. They're built to hold out for a very long time. Zexthara felt the last of her confidence crumble. The Empire's advantages were range, firepower, and numerical superiority. The humans had just demonstrated superior range and firepower, and she was looking at numerical superiority on her tactical display. How many ships do you have? She asked. Enough. Stone's answer was deliberately vague. Admiral, I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm trying to prevent a war that would cost both our peoples dearly. The Empire is vast and powerful. Humans are few, but well-armed. Neither of us benefits from conflict. The Emperor won't accept this. Withdrawal means admitting defeat. Then, perhaps the Emperor needs better information. Stone touched his controls again. Sarah, transmit package Omega to Admiral Zexthara's ship. Data flooded the Imperial computers. Technical specifications, stellar charts, sensor logs, and recordings of human military exercises. Zexthara watched weapons tests that turned moons into expanding clouds of plasma. Ship formations that moved with precision no Imperial fleet could match. Manufacturing capabilities that suggested human space was far larger than anyone had guessed. This is... She started, then stopped. The data was overwhelming. Reality, Admiral. The Empire has encountered something it wasn't prepared for. Stone's voice was gentle but firm. We're not enemies. We don't have to be. But the Outer Rim is off limits. Zexthara made her decision. My ships will withdraw. But this isn't over. The Empire will want answers. We're prepared to provide them. Send ambassadors, not war fleets. We prefer diplomacy to destruction. As the Imperial ships powered down weapons and began turning away, Zexthara asked one final question. Captain Stone, what are humans? The human smiled one last time. Survivors, Admiral. We're very good at surviving. The screen went dark, and the Imperial fleet began its long journey home. Behind them, 47 human ships faded back into invisibility, leaving only one ugly, blocky vessel hanging in the void like a silent promise. Emperor Kethvar paced the length of his private chamber, his massive form creating tremors with each step. The crystalline being stood nearly 4 meters tall, his body composed of living diamond that reflected the chamber's lights in brilliant patterns. When angry, those patterns turned dark red, and today the Emperor was furious. Explain this to me again, he rumbled, his voice resonating through the crystal walls. 3 dreadnoughts. Our finest ships. our most experienced admiral, turned away by primitives. High Admiral Morgex stood at attention, his 6 arms clasped behind his chitinous back. The insectoid officer had served the Empire for 2 centuries, conquering dozens of worlds. Today he looked diminished. Your Imperial Majesty, Admiral Zexthara's report is troubling. The humans demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our current understanding. Impossible. Kethvar's form flared brighter. The Empire has conquered 400 species across 80,000 star systems. We have encountered every form of technology the galaxy possesses. Perhaps not, Majesty. Morgex activated a holographic display. The data Admiral Zexthara brought back suggests human civilization is significantly older than we estimated. Their weapon signatures alone indicate mastery of controlled stellar fusion at scales we've never achieved. The Emperor studied the display with growing unease. Technical specifications filled the air around him, showing ship designs that seemed primitive yet carried devastating firepower. More disturbing were the manufacturing reports suggesting human space contained thousands of star systems. Where did they come from? Our scouts have mapped the galaxy for millennia. No significant civilization escaped our notice. The humans claim to be nomadic, Majesty. Their settlements may be mobile, or hidden using stealth technology we can't detect. Kethvar's form darkened further. The Empire's strength had always been its superior technology and vast industrial base. If these humans possessed both stealth and superior weapons. The missing battle groups, he said slowly. 9 ships lost in 6 months. No survivors, no wreckage. This was humans. Admiral Zexthara believes so, Majesty. The human captain suggested their people have been monitoring our expansion for over a year. Monitoring? Like we're specimens in a laboratory. The Emperor's voice grew dangerous. What else did this human captain tell our admiral? Morgex hesitated. He offered negotiation, Majesty. Complete human withdrawal from Imperial space in exchange for Imperial withdrawal from what they call the Outer Rim. They want us to retreat from territory the Empire has claimed. The Outer Rim was never officially incorporated, Majesty. Those systems were designated for future expansion, but we haven't established colonies or permanent bases. Kethvar considered this. The Empire was vast, but even vast empires had limits. The Outer Rim had been marked for eventual conquest, but resources were currently focused on consolidating core territories and suppressing rebellions. What do our intelligence services know about these humans? A new figure stepped from the shadows. Director V.S. Kala was a shade, one of the few species that could manipulate light itself. Her form was barely visible, more suggestion than substance. Very little, Majesty. Our agents have found no references to humans in any galactic databases. They appear to have avoided contact with all known species until now. Avoided or eliminated those who encountered them. Unknown. But there are anomalies in historical records. Several expeditions to the Galactic Rim never returned. Independent surveys reported strange energy signatures that were dismissed as sensor errors. The Emperor felt cold spreading through his crystalline form. How long have they been there? Based on the data Admiral Zexthara recovered, possibly millennia. Their technology shows signs of continuous development over vast periods. This isn't a recently spacefaring species, Majesty. They may be older than the Empire itself. Kethvar moved to the great window overlooking Imperial City. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked in the sprawling metropolis below, all united under Imperial rule. The sight usually filled him with pride. Today, it reminded him how much he had to protect. Military assessment, he commanded. Admiral Morgex activated another display. Preliminary analysis suggests human military doctrine emphasizes technological superiority over numerical advantage. Their ships carry disproportionate firepower for their size. Estimated fleet strength is unknown, but the tactical formations Admiral Zexthara observed suggest extensive military experience. Combat experience? Extensive. The human captain mentioned 10,000 years of warfare. If accurate, their military development has been accelerated by constant conflict. 10,000 years of war. The Empire had enjoyed relative peace for much of its expansion, overwhelming primitive species through superior technology. These humans had been fighting and evolving their military capabilities for longer than recorded Imperial history. Recommendations? Morgex's mandibles clicked nervously. Majesty, direct military confrontation appears inadvisable without significant intelligence gathering. We need to understand human capabilities before committing major fleet assets. You're suggesting we negotiate with them? I'm suggesting we avoid a war we might not win. Silence filled the chamber. The concept of Imperial defeat was so alien that even speaking it felt like treason. Yet the evidence was undeniable. 3 dreadnoughts had faced 1 human ship and chose retreat over battle. Director VES Kala materialized more fully. Majesty, there's another consideration. Our recent expansion has triggered increased rebel activity. If we commit significant forces to confronting the humans, rebel groups may see opportunity. Kethvar knew she was right. The rebellion had grown bolder lately, striking Imperial supply lines and freeing occupied worlds. Intelligence suggested they were receiving support from unknown sources. Now he wondered if those sources might be human. The rebels, could they be connected to these humans? Possible. The human captain mentioned that his people weren't the only ones interested in limiting Imperial expansion. The Emperor felt pieces clicking into place. The Empire had always faced minor rebellions, but the current uprising was different. Better organized, better equipped, more tactically sophisticated. If humans were providing support, what do we know about rebel capabilities? Improving rapidly, Morgex admitted. Recent engagements show rebels using weapons and tactics previously unknown. Their ships are still inferior to Imperial vessels, but the gap is narrowing. Human technology transfer? Very likely. Kethvar walked to his private terminal and accessed the Empire's strategic databases. Expansion rates, resource allocation, military deployment. The numbers painted a troubling picture. Imperial forces were already stretched thin, maintaining control over existing territories. A major war in the Outer Rim would require significant redeployment. How many systems would we need to evacuate to mount a campaign against human space? Admiral Morgex calculated quickly. For a campaign of sufficient size to overwhelm demonstrated human capabilities, we'd need to withdraw from at least 40 systems in the Midrim, possibly more, leaving those systems vulnerable to rebel attack. Yes, Majesty. The Emperor stared at the tactical displays, seeing the Empire's situation with new clarity. They faced a choice between maintaining control over existing territory or risking everything on expansion into space held by technologically superior opponents. The human captain, Stone, what was your assessment of him? Admiral Zexthara's report had been detailed. Morgex consulted his notes. Professional military bearing. Extensive combat experience based on visible scarring. Confident, but not arrogant. Demonstrated knowledge of Imperial capabilities that suggests long observation. A veteran. Almost certainly. And if he's representative of human military leadership. The Emperor understood. Veterans made dangerous enemies. They knew when to fight and when to withdraw. They planned carefully and struck decisively. The Empire's greatest successes had come against species that reacted emotionally to Imperial aggression. Humans appeared to respond strategically. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Kethvar accepted it, and General Rexton appeared in holographic form. The reptilian officer commanded Imperial forces in the Outer Midrim. Majesty, we have a situation. Long-range scouts report human ships in 3 additional systems. All previous unknown to our databases. Hostile contact. Negative. The human ships withdrew when approached, but not before transmitting a message in perfect galactic standard. What message? A formal diplomatic communication requesting direct dialogue with Imperial leadership. They're offering to establish a neutral meeting site for negotiations. Kethvar looked at his advisors. Opinion. Director VES Kala spoke first. It could be a trap, but humans have demonstrated the ability to destroy our ships if they wished. Offering negotiations suggests genuine desire to avoid conflict. Admiral Morgex nodded agreement. Their behavior pattern has been defensive rather than aggressive. They've had opportunities to inflict significant damage and chosen restraint. The Emperor considered his options. Pride demanded that the Empire never show weakness. Pragmatism suggested that some displays of strength might actually be displays of stupidity. What are they proposing for this meeting? General Rex Tun consulted his communications. A space station in neutral territory. Equal numbers of ships for escort. Full diplomatic immunity. They're even offering to provide translation services for any species we bring to the negotiations. They assume we'll bring a multi-species delegation? Their message specifically mentions the galactic community's interest in the outcome. They seem to understand that this affects more than just the Empire. Kethvar felt another chill. The humans weren't just thinking tactically about military confrontation. They were thinking strategically about galactic politics. If the Empire appeared aggressive toward a peacekeeping species, other civilizations might become sympathetic to rebel causes. Time frame. They're requesting response within 7 standard days. If we agree to negotiations, they'll provide coordinates for the meeting site. The Emperor walked to his war room display, showing the full extent of Imperial territory. Nearly a quarter of the galaxy fell under Imperial control, with plans for eventual complete galactic dominance. But expansion had stalled lately due to rebel activity and resource constraints. Director VES Kala, Intelligence Assessment. If we negotiate with humans, how will other species respond? Complex calculation, Majesty. Some will see it as Imperial weakness. Others will view it as Imperial wisdom. Much depends on the negotiation outcomes. And if we attack human space? Unknown variables make prediction difficult. But if humans prove as capable as initial contact suggests, Imperial losses could be significant. Failed aggressive action would definitely be seen as weakness. Admiral Morgex added his analysis. Military perspective, Majesty. We're facing an opponent about whom we know almost nothing, operating from secure bases with unknown defensive capabilities, using superior technology, and possibly supported by rebel groups. Classical military doctrine strongly advises against engaging such an opponent without overwhelming advantage. Do we have overwhelming advantage? Unknown. Possibly not. Emperor Kethvar stood silent for long minutes, weighing options that would affect billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The Empire had been built on strength, but wisdom was also strength. Prepare a response, he decided. The Empire agrees to negotiations. Full diplomatic protocol. I want our best negotiators, our finest ships, and complete intelligence gathering on everything humans reveal during the process. The rebel question, Majesty? We'll address that depending on what we learn about human intentions. If they're supporting rebels, negotiations will determine whether that continues. As his advisors departed to carry out orders, Kethvar remained at the Great Window. The Empire had conquered hundreds of species, but this was different. For the first time in Imperial history, they were dealing with opponents who might be their equals. The thought was both terrifying and oddly exciting. The space station materialized from hyperspace with perfect precision, its coordinates matching those transmitted by human representatives exactly. Ambassador Felnara watched through the viewport of the Imperial diplomatic vessel as the structure took shape against the stars. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon. The station's architecture was unlike anything in Imperial databases. Flowing curves and organic shapes suggested advanced materials science, while the obvious docking bays could accommodate hundreds of ships simultaneously. Readings? She asked her aide, a nervous young Quellan whose scales shifted color with his emotions. Currently, those scales showed deep purple anxiety. Energy signatures are remarkable, Ambassador. The station appears to be powered by multiple fusion reactors of unprecedented efficiency. Defensive capabilities are unknown, but estimated to be substantial. Felnara nodded, making notes on her diplomatic pad. As the Empire's most experienced xenobiologist and negotiator, she had dealt with over 60 different species. None had impressed her quite like this first glimpse of human engineering. Her communications officer looked up from his console. Ambassador, we're receiving docking instructions. Base 17. The humans have assigned us an escort. Through the main viewer, Felnara watched a sleek ship approach their position. It was clearly human in design, bearing the same blocky aesthetic as the vessel that had confronted Admiral Zexthara. But this one seemed purpose-built for escort duties. Weapon ports were visible, but not prominent, suggesting peaceful intentions backed by capability. Signal acceptance of their escort, she ordered. Full diplomatic courtesy. As their ship followed the human escort toward the station, Felnara reviewed her mission parameters one final time. Emperor Kethvar had been clear: determine human capabilities, assess their intentions, and, if possible, negotiate terms that preserved Imperial expansion plans while avoiding warfare. The docking bay was enormous, easily accommodating their heavy cruiser with room for dozens of other vessels. Felnara noticed ships from multiple species already present. Some designs she recognized as independent traders and explorers. Others were completely unknown. Ambassador, her security chief, reported, sensors detect representatives from at least 12 different species aboard the station. Several are known rebel sympathizers. This was troubling. If humans were hosting a multi-species conference, it suggested they viewed the Imperial situation as a galactic concern rather than a bilateral dispute. The docking process completed smoothly, with human ground crews providing assistance that demonstrated both competence and courtesy. When the airlock cycled open, Felnara got her first close look at human beings. The welcoming committee consisted of 3 humans in formal diplomatic attire. They were shorter than she had expected, averaging perhaps 1.75 meters in height. Their skin tones varied from pale to dark brown, and their faces showed the sort of calm alertness she associated with experienced negotiators. The lead human stepped forward. Ambassador Felnara, I presume? I'm Director Sarah Chun, representing the Human Colonial Administration. Welcome to Harmony Station. Felnara was surprised by the humans' knowledge of Imperial naming conventions and proper forms of address. Director Chen, the Empire appreciates your hospitality. I trust these negotiations will prove beneficial to all parties. That's our hope as well. Chen gestured toward the station's interior. If you'd like to accompany me, I'll provide a brief orientation before we begin formal discussions. As they walked through the station's corridors, Felnara observed everything with professional interest. The human population was more diverse than Imperial intelligence had suggested, showing significant genetic variation. More surprisingly, she noticed individuals from other species working alongside humans in various capacities. Director Chun, I wasn't aware humans had established diplomatic relations with other galactic species. We prefer to keep a low profile, Chen replied diplomatically. But when expansion activities threaten peaceful civilizations, we occasionally provide assistance. Translation: humans were already involved in galactic politics, and the Empire had been operating in ignorance of that involvement. Felnara filed this information for her report. They entered a vast observation lounge where representatives from various species were gathered in small groups. Felnara recognized delegates from the Terran Liberation Front, the Free Worlds Alliance, and several independent systems that had resisted Imperial expansion. A diverse gathering, she observed. The galactic community has grown quite concerned about recent Imperial activities, Chen said quietly. Many species have requested human assistance in addressing the situation diplomatically. Felnara felt a chill. This wasn't a bilateral negotiation between the Empire and humanity. This was a galactic intervention, with humans serving as coordinators for multiple species opposed to Imperial expansion. I see. And what role do humans play in these community concerns? Primarily defensive. We provide protection for species threatened by aggressive expansion. Occasionally, we offer technological assistance to help smaller civilizations defend themselves. The rebels had been receiving human support. That explained their improved capabilities. But Chen's casual admission suggested humans weren't particularly concerned about Imperial reactions to this news. Director Chun, the Empire has invested considerable resources in Outer Rim expansion plans. Abandoning those plans would represent significant economic impact. Of course, that's why we're hoping to find mutually beneficial alternatives. They entered a smaller conference room where additional human representatives waited. Felnara was introduced to Admiral Stone, whom she recognized from intelligence reports as the captain who had confronted Admiral Zexthera. In person, he appeared even more formidable than holographic records suggested. Admiral Stone, your reputation precedes you. Ambassador, I hope we can resolve this situation without further military complications. Neither of our peoples benefit from conflict. The Empire agrees, which is why we're here. However, we need to understand human intentions regarding the Outer Rim territories. Director Chen activated a holographic display showing the galactic spiral. Perhaps it would be helpful to clarify the situation from multiple perspectives. The display highlighted various regions in different colors. Imperial territory appeared in red, human space in blue, and neutral systems in green. What surprised Felnara was the extent of blue coloring. Human space was far larger than Imperial intelligence had estimated. These territorial boundaries, she said carefully, represent actual human settlements? Human protected space, Admiral Stone corrected. We maintain defensive positions in approximately 4,000 systems across the galactic rim. For 1,000 systems, the Empire controlled roughly 6,000 systems total. Felnara struggled to maintain diplomatic composure. I wasn't aware human civilization was so extensive. As Director Chen mentioned, we prefer discretion. Human expansion has always emphasized sustainability over visibility. Chen manipulated the display to show resource flows and trade routes. Our economic model differs significantly from imperial approaches. Rather than extractive colonization, humans focus on cooperative development with indigenous species. The display showed dozens of species working with human protection and technological assistance. Many were civilizations the Empire had marked for future conquest. I see. And these cooperative relationships involve military support. Defensive support, Admiral Stone emphasized. We help species defend their homeworlds and develop their own capabilities. We don't conquer territory or impose political control. Felnara studied the display more carefully. If humans had been building a galactic defensive network for centuries or millennia, the Empire's expansion had been proceeding into increasingly hostile territory without realizing it. Admiral, your fleet capabilities. The reports from Admiral Zexthara were impressive. Human military doctrine emphasizes technological superiority and strategic positioning over raw numbers. We've learned that wars are won by preparation, not just firepower. And your preparation level for potential Imperial conflict? Stone exchanged glances with Chun before answering. Extensive. We've been monitoring Imperial activities for quite some time. Our defensive plans are thorough. Director Chun leaned forward. Ambassador, we should clarify something important. Humans don't want war with the Empire. Your civilization has achieved remarkable things, and we respect that. But we won't allow aggressive expansion to continue threatening peaceful species. The Empire's expansion serves to bring order and prosperity to the galaxy. From an Imperial perspective, certainly. From the perspective of species being conquered, the experience is rather different. Felnara felt the negotiation taking an uncomfortable turn. Director Chun, the Empire has lifted hundreds of species from primitive conditions to galactic civilization, after conquering them militarily and imposing Imperial rule. Yes, we're familiar with the process. Chen's tone remained diplomatic, but firm. Humans tried that approach ourselves millennia ago. We learned that sustainable civilization requires voluntary cooperation, not enforced submission. And if the Empire disagrees with human assessment of what constitutes appropriate galactic development, Admiral Stone answered this time, then we'll continue to disagree, and the Empire will continue to find expansion into the outer rim increasingly difficult. Felnara realized she was facing something unprecedented in Imperial diplomatic history. These humans weren't seeking accommodation or trying to avoid Imperial attention. They were drawing clear boundaries and stating their intention to enforce those boundaries regardless of Imperial preferences. Admiral, you're saying humans will actively resist Imperial expansion. I'm saying humans will continue protecting species that request our protection. If Imperial expansion threatens those species, we'll respond appropriately. And if the Empire chooses to proceed despite human opposition, Stone's expression grew serious. Ambassador, I've commanded human warships for 30 years. I've fought in 7 different conflicts across 16 star systems. I've never lost an engagement, and neither have most of my fellow officers. That's not arrogant speaking. It's statistical fact. The Empire has more experience with large-scale galactic warfare. The Empire has more experience conquering primitive species. Humans have more experience fighting technologically comparable opponents. There's a significant difference. Director Chen intervened smoothly. Perhaps we should focus on positive alternatives rather than potential conflicts. Ambassador, What would the Empire need to consider peaceful coexistence viable? Felnara consulted her negotiation guidelines. Emperor Kethvar had provided some flexibility, but the basic requirements were non-negotiable. The Empire requires continued access to Outer Rim resources, freedom of navigation through claimed territories, and recognition of imperial sovereignty over existing colonial systems. Reasonable requests, Shin acknowledged. And humans require protection of indigenous species, limits on aggressive expansion, and respect for established defensive agreements. Established by whom? By the species requesting protection. Over 60 civilizations have formally requested human defensive assistance. 60 civilizations allied with humans against imperial expansion. Felnara felt the true scope of her mission becoming clear. This wasn't a negotiation about territorial boundaries. This was a discussion about the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Director Chun, what you're describing would essentially end imperial expansion beyond current boundaries. Not necessarily, but it would require imperial expansion to proceed through negotiation and cooperation rather than conquest. The Empire has never operated that way. Then, perhaps it's time for the Empire to evolve its approach. Admiral Stone added quietly. Ambassador, empires that refuse to adapt eventually collapse. Human history is full of examples. We'd prefer to help the Galactic Empire adapt rather than watching it destroy itself through overextension. Felnara studied both humans carefully. They were offering genuine cooperation, but only within boundaries they had defined. The Empire could accept those boundaries and maintain its existing territory or challenge them, and risk military confrontation with an opponent of unknown but clearly substantial capabilities. I need to consult with my government, she said finally. Of course, Chen replied. We'll provide secure communications access and complete privacy for your discussions. These decisions shouldn't be rushed. As Felnara was escorted to private quarters, she reflected on everything she had learned. The Empire faced a choice that would determine its future: continue aggressive expansion and fight a potentially devastating war, or accept limits and learn to coexist with equals. For the first time in Imperial history, someone was offering them partnership instead of demanding submission. The question was whether the Empire was wise enough to accept. High Admiral Morgex stood in the Imperial War Room, studying battle projections that had kept him awake for 3 days. The holographic displays showed every possible military scenario for confronting human space, and none of them inspired confidence. Computer, run Scenario 7 again. The display shifted to show a massive Imperial fleet advancing into human territory. Red indicators tracked Imperial ships, while blue markers represented human defensive positions. As the simulation progressed, Morgex watched his forces achieve initial success, pushing deep into human space. Then, the humans counterattacked. Blue markers appeared throughout Imperial space as human ships emerged from stealth positions that Imperial intelligence had never detected. Supply lines were cut, reserve fleets were ambushed, and within 6 simulated months, Imperial forces were in full retreat. Probability assessment of Scenario 7. Imperial victory, 12%. Acceptable losses, 3%. Catastrophic Imperial defeat, 41%. 12%. Against primitives who built ugly ships and lived in the galactic backwater. Morgex had conquered species with more favorable odds. Computer, what factors contribute to low Imperial success probability? Primary factors: unknown human fleet strength, superior human weapons technology, extensive human intelligence network, potential multi-species alliance against Imperial expansion. The door chimed, and General Rex Tun entered carrying additional intelligence reports. The reptilian officer looked as exhausted as Morgex felt. High Admiral, the latest reports from our Outer Rim scouts. Morgex accepted the datapad, scanning its contents with growing unease. 37 systems showing human ship activity? Yesterday, it was 22. Human presence is expanding, sir. They're not hiding anymore. Wherever human ships had been detected, rebel operations had increased in sophistication and success rates. Assessment of current rebel capabilities? Rex Tun activated additional displays. Dramatically improved. Rebel ships now carry weapons comparable to Imperial frigates. Their tactics show professional military planning. Most concerning, they demonstrate strategic coordination across vast distances. Human command structure? Almost certainly. The rebels are operating with unified objectives for the first time in Imperial history. Morgex felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking together. The Empire wasn't just facing human opposition to expansion. They were facing a coordinated galactic uprising with humans providing strategic leadership. General, in your professional opinion, could we suppress current rebel activity while simultaneously mounting a campaign against human space? Rexton hesitated before answering. High Admiral, our forces are already stretched maintaining control over existing territory. A major Outer Rim campaign would require withdrawing significant assets from internal security. The rebels would undoubtedly exploit such redeployment. And if we focus on suppressing rebels first, human support would ensure rebel cells regenerated faster than we could eliminate them. We'd be fighting an endless guerrilla war across thousands of systems. Morgex walked to the strategic display showing the full scope of Imperial territory. Red zones indicated active rebel operations. Yellow zones showed potential rebel recruitment areas. Green zones represented secure Imperial control. The pattern was disturbing. Computer, analyze territorial security if we commit 70% of fleet assets to Outer Rim campaign. The display shifted, showing projected rebel activity levels during theoretical human conflict. Yellow zones turned red. Red zones turned black, indicating complete loss of Imperial control. Even some green zones showed vulnerability. Estimated timeline for complete Imperial collapse under such deployment: 14 to 18 months, assuming average rebel recruitment and human technological support. Less than 2 years. The Empire could destroy itself pursuing war with humans even if they won every battle. Director VES column materialized from shadows near the main display. High Admiral, there are additional factors to consider, such as economic impact. Outer Rim expansion was projected to provide resource funding for military operations. If those expansion plans are canceled, existing Imperial infrastructure faces budget constraints. Morgex hadn't considered this angle. Explain. Imperial expansion has always been self-funding. Conquered worlds provide resources that finance further expansion. Without new conquests, the Empire faces difficult choices about military spending. We have sufficient reserves for perhaps 5 years of current military expenditure. After that, the Empire would need to increase taxation on existing worlds or reduce fleet size. Increased taxation would breed more rebels. Reduced fleet size would make suppressing existing rebels more difficult. Morgex was beginning to understand how humans had trapped the Empire without firing a shot. Director, are you suggesting the Empire requires continuous expansion to remain economically viable? Current Imperial structure assumes steady territorial growth. Stagnation creates fiscal pressures that could destabilize the entire system. General Rexton looked up from his reports. There's another issue. Morale. Imperial forces have never faced technological equals. Reports from Admiral Zextara's encounter have spread through the fleet. Officers are questioning whether Imperial superiority is absolute. Morgex felt cold dread. Military effectiveness depended on confidence. If Imperial forces began doubting their own capabilities, how widespread are these morale concerns? Difficult to assess precisely. But recruitment numbers are declining in systems near the Outer Rim. Some officers have requested transfers away from frontier duties. The Empire was becoming afraid of its own borders. Morgex had fought dozens of campaigns, but he'd never faced a situation where simply knowing about the enemy reduced his force's effectiveness. Emperor Kethvar entered the war room, his crystalline form blazing with frustrated energy. Report. Morgex straightened. Majesty, military analysis suggests confronting humans would be inadvisable. Defined inadvisable. Probability of Imperial victory is less than 15%. Probability of catastrophic defeat exceeds 40%. Probability of Empire collapse during extended conflict approaches certainty. Kethvar studied the tactical displays in silence. These humans are that formidable. Unknown, Majesty. But the strategic situation makes military solution impractical regardless of human capabilities. Explain. General Rexton stepped forward. Majesty, Humans have created a situation where attacking them triggers empire-wide rebel uprising. We cannot fight both simultaneously. Then, we eliminate the rebels first. Director V.S. Kala flickered into greater visibility. Majesty, humans are rebuilding rebel capabilities faster than we can destroy them. The rebellion has become self-sustaining with human support. Emperor Kethvar moved to the main display, studying the patterns of rebel activity and human presence. They've checkmated us without a single battle. It appears so, Majesty. Military recommendations? Morgex had anticipated this question. Diplomatic resolution, Majesty. The humans have offered reasonable terms. Reasonable? They demand we abandon expansion plans. They demand we obtain consent from species before claiming their territory. The practical effect would be slower expansion, not elimination of expansion. The Empire does not ask permission to bring civilization to primitives. Perhaps, Majesty, the Empire needs to redefine what constitutes civilization. Kethvar turned sharply. Explain. Director V.S. Kala answered. Human civilization appears to achieve technological advancement and social stability without military conquest. Their model suggests alternatives to imperial methods. You're advocating we adopt human methods? I'm suggesting we study them, Majesty. Successful empires adapt to changing conditions. General Rex Tun added his support. Majesty, humans have achieved technological superiority while maintaining apparently stable multi-species cooperation. Understanding their methods could strengthen the Empire. Morgex felt the discussion moving in directions he hadn't anticipated. Majesty, what if we approach this as a learning opportunity rather than a confrontation? Learning what? How to build sustainable galactic civilization. The Empire has grown rapidly through conquest, but growth through cooperation might prove more stable long-term. Kethvar was quiet for long minutes, processing information and possibilities. Status of Ambassador Felnara's negotiations? Her latest reports suggest humans are sincere about cooperation, Majesty. They're offering technological exchange, joint development projects, and shared security arrangements. In exchange for respect for species sovereignty and gradual transition from conquest to voluntary association. The Empire becoming a voluntary association of species? Possibly, Majesty. Historical analysis suggests voluntary empires often prove more stable than those maintained by force. The Emperor studied economic projections showing imperial sustainability under various scenarios. Continued conquest required endless military expenditure. Voluntary association offered possibilities for shared development costs and reduced security expenses. Director V.S. Kala, Intelligence Assessment. Could the Empire maintain unity without military dominance? Complex question, Majesty. But human example suggests advanced species prefer cooperation to subjugation. The Empire might actually gain strength by offering partnership instead of demanding submission. Morgex pulled up population statistics for imperial territory. Majesty, consider this. Forced submission breeds rebellion. Voluntary cooperation breeds innovation. Most imperial technological advancement comes from species that joined willingly rather than those conquered militarily. You're all suggesting the Empire has been using inefficient methods? We're suggesting humans have demonstrated more efficient methods, Majesty. Kethvar moved to his private terminal, accessing communication channels to the negotiation site. Ambassador Felnara, priority communication. The holographic form of the imperial diplomat appeared. Majesty, the negotiations are progressing. Ambassador, could the Empire achieve its expansion goals through the methods humans propose? Possibly more effectively than current methods, Majesty. Human representatives have offered to mediate imperial contact with species interested in voluntary association. Their reputation for fair dealing could actually accelerate imperial growth. Growth through attraction rather than conquest. The humans call it soft power, Majesty, demonstrating imperial benefits rather than imperial force. Many species have expressed interest in imperial technology and trade opportunities if offered as partnership rather than conquest. Morgex felt understanding dawn. Majesty, we've been assuming conquest was the only path to expansion. Humans are offering to teach us alternative paths that might prove more effective. Emperor Kethvar stood silent, weighing the future of galactic civilization. The Empire could continue its traditional path toward probable destruction, or adapt to learn from opponents who had somehow become teachers. Ambassador Felnara informed the humans that the Empire is prepared to discuss fundamental restructuring of our expansion policies. Majesty, we're willing to learn their methods, Ambassador. If humans can teach us to build a stronger empire through cooperation, the Empire is interested in such education. As the communication ended, Morgex realized they had just crossed a threshold in Imperial history. For the first time, the Empire was choosing to learn from others rather than simply conquering them. The humans had won without fighting, and somehow made their victory feel like everyone's opportunity. 3 years later, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching as the massive construction project took shape against the backdrop of space. The joint Imperial-Human shipyard was larger than most cities, its fabrication bays capable of building vessels that incorporated the best technology from both civilizations. Status report. She called to her engineering officer. The new cruiser design is ahead of schedule, Captain. Imperial metallurgy combined with human reactor technology is producing impressive results. Elena smiled, remembering the heated debates during the early collaboration meetings. Imperial engineers had insisted their materials science was superior. Human engineers had argued for fusion power plant efficiency. The solution had been to combine both approaches, creating ships that surpassed either civilization's individual capabilities. Any word from the diplomatic delegation? Her communications officer looked up from his console. Ambassador Chun reports successful negotiations with the Xerian Republic. They're requesting formal admission to the Galactic Cooperative. Elena nodded, making notes on her command pad. The Xerian Republic would be the 47th species to join the new galactic organization that had emerged from human-imperial cooperation. What had started as a desperate attempt to avoid war had evolved into something unprecedented, a voluntary association of civilizations focused on mutual benefit rather than dominance. Captain, her tactical officer called out, we're receiving a priority signal from the Imperial Dawn. The main view screen activated to show Admiral Zexthara, now serving as Joint Commander of the Cooperative's Defense Forces. The reptilian officer's expression showed the calm confidence that had made her one of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy. Captain Vasquez, we have a situation in the Kepler sector. Unknown ships have appeared near the colony world of New Harmony. Elena felt familiar alertness. Even 3 years into the cooperative era, not all species had accepted the new galactic order. Some viewed cooperation as weakness and tested cooperative resolve periodically. Details, Admiral? 3 vessels of unknown configuration. They're demanding New Harmony's surrender and claiming the system for something called the Dominion Alliance. Elena consulted her tactical database. New Harmony was home to refugees from 6 different species, all working together to build a sustainable colony under cooperative protection. If hostile forces were threatening the settlement, fleet response authorization? Granted. Full joint operation. The Imperial Dawn, Human Defiance, and Terran Guardian are already en route. Elena felt satisfaction at the smooth coordination between human and Imperial forces. Admiral Zexthara commanded the Imperial vessel, Captain Stone led the human contingent, and Captain Veltak served as tactical coordinator aboard the joint cruise ship. 3 years of cooperation had forged genuine friendships across species lines. ETA to Kepler sector? 16 hours at maximum sustainable speed. As the Prometheus joined the small fleet heading toward New Harmony, Elena reflected on how much had changed since that first tense confrontation between Admiral Zexthara and Captain Stone. The transformation hadn't been easy or immediate, but both humans and Imperials had proven capable of adapting to new realities. The breakthrough had come when human engineers had shared fusion technology in exchange for Imperial materials science. The resulting collaboration had produced ships and technologies beyond either species' individual capabilities. More importantly, it had demonstrated that cooperation could achieve what conquest never had: genuine technological advancement through shared knowledge. Captain, incoming transmission from New Harmony Colony. The screen showed a young Terran woman with the weathered look of a frontier colonist. Behind her, Elena could see representatives from multiple species working frantically at various stations. This is Colony Administrator Martinez. We're under threat from unknown vessels demanding immediate surrender. They claim our multi-species cooperation violates something called natural order and must be corrected. Elena frowned. Administrator, have they made specific demands? Separation of species, with each group relocating to appropriate territory under Dominion control. They seem to believe multi-species cooperation is somehow dangerous to galactic stability. Elena exchanged glances with her bridge crew. This sounded like an ideological challenge to the cooperative's fundamental principles. Some species had struggled to accept that different civilizations could work together as equals. Administrator Martinez, cooperative forces are en route. Maintain defensive positions and document all interactions with these Dominion vessels. Understood, Captain. Colony defense forces are standing by, but we're not equipped for serious military action. As the transmission ended, Elena's executive officer raised a concern. Captain, if this Dominion alliance represents multiple species opposed to cooperation, we could be facing a broader threat. Possible. But we'll deal with immediate threats first and worry about larger implications afterward. The journey to New Harmony gave Elena time to review intelligence reports about species that had rejected cooperative membership. Most were traditional military hierarchies that viewed cooperation as weakness. A few were religious or ideological groups that believed in species separation for various philosophical reasons. Captain, her intelligence officer reported, we're receiving data from cooperative intelligence networks. The Dominion Alliance appears to be a coalition of 7 species that formally rejected cooperative membership. They've established territory in unclaimed space beyond the galactic rim. Military capabilities? Unknown, but their ship designs suggest advanced technology. They may have been developing weapons specifically intended to counter cooperative advantages. Elena felt concern, but not fear. Cooperative forces had 3 years of joint training and technological development. More importantly, they had learned to fight as coordinated teams rather than individual species protecting separate interests. Signal Admiral Zexthera. Request full tactical briefing upon arrival. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Harmony to find a tense standoff in progress. 3 alien vessels hung in orbit around the colony world, their designs unlike anything in cooperative databases. The ships were sleek and aggressive-looking, with weapon ports that suggested significant firepower. Admiral Zexthera, to all vessels, came the familiar voice over communications. Standard diplomatic approach. We offer negotiation before considering military action. Elena watched as the Admiral's ship moved toward the unknown vessels, broadcasting standard cooperative first contact protocols. The response was immediate and hostile. Cooperative forces, you are interfering with Dominion justice. This colony represents a violation of natural species boundaries and must be corrected. Admiral Zexthera's response was calm but firm. This is Admiral Zexthera of the Galactic Cooperative. New Harmony Colony operates under cooperative protection. We require you to withdraw or face defensive action. Admiral, you serve the corrupt alliance that weakens the galaxy through unnatural cooperation. The Dominion offers you one opportunity to remember your imperial heritage and abandon these human-corrupted ways. Elena felt anger at the casual dismissal of everything the cooperative had achieved. The improvements in technology, the peaceful resolution of dozens of territorial disputes, the unprecedented economic prosperity through shared development. All Dominion vessels, Admiral Zexthera broadcast, you have 10 minutes to withdraw from this system. We will not permit threats against peaceful colonies. The response came not in words but in weapons fire. The Dominion ships opened fire simultaneously, targeting both the cooperative fleet and the colony below. Elena watched in satisfaction as cooperative defensive doctrine proved its effectiveness. Ships scattered into pre-planned formations, overlapping shields deflecting incoming fire, while return shots struck with precision that reflected months of joint training exercises. The Dominion vessels were advanced, but they fought as individual ships rather than coordinated units. Cooperative forces moved like a single organism, each vessel supporting the others according to tactical plans developed through human strategic thinking and imperial military experience. Target their weapon systems, Elena ordered. Disable rather than destroy when possible. The battle was brief, but decisive. Dominion ships found themselves outmaneuvered by coordinated tactics and outgunned by technology they hadn't anticipated. Within 30 minutes, 2 Dominion vessels were disabled, and the third was attempting to withdraw. Admiral Zexthera to Dominion Command. Surrender and prepare for boarding. We offer medical assistance to your wounded and fair treatment according to cooperative law. We will not surrender to species traitors, came the reply. The Dominion will remember this treachery. The surviving Dominion ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind 2 disabled vessels and a clear message about future interactions. Captain Vasquez, Admiral Zexthera signaled, boarding teams to secure disabled vessels. Standard cooperative protocol for hostile contacts. Elena nodded, dispatching security teams that included both human and Imperial personnel trained to work together. The boarding operation proceeded smoothly, with Dominion crews offering minimal resistance once they realized their situation was hopeless. The interrogations that followed provided sobering intelligence about the threat the cooperative faced. The Dominion Alliance had spent 3 years building military forces specifically designed to challenge cooperative territory. They viewed multi-species cooperation as a galactic disease that needed to be eliminated. Captain, her intelligence officer reported, the Dominion represents at least 47 star systems with significant military production capabilities. They're planning systematic attacks on cooperative colonies with the goal of forcing species separation. Elena studied the captured data with growing concern. This wasn't a border skirmish or territorial dispute. The Dominion Alliance represented an ideological challenge to everything the cooperative had built. Signal Fleet Command. Priority communication with cooperative leadership. We need to discuss strategic response to a coordinated threat. Hours later, Elena found herself participating in a joint command conference involving species from across cooperative space. Emperor Kethvar's crystalline form dominated one section of the holographic display, while Director Chun represented human interests and Admiral Stone provided military analysis. Assessment. Emperor Kethvar inquired. Admiral Stone spoke first. Military threat is significant, but manageable. Dominion forces are well-equipped, but lack cooperative advantages in coordination and joint technology. Political threat? Director Chun asked. More serious, Elena replied. Dominion ideology appeals to species that feel threatened by cooperation. If they can demonstrate cooperative weakness, other species might join their alliance. Emperor Kethvar's form brightened thoughtfully. Recommendations? Demonstrate cooperative strength through successful defense of threatened colonies, Admiral Stone suggested. But also show cooperative benefits by accelerating development projects in border areas. Director Chun nodded agreement. We need to prove that cooperation produces better results than separation. Economic prosperity and technological advancement speak louder than military victories. Elena felt proud of how the discussion proceeded. 3 years ago, such multi-species strategic planning would have been impossible. Now it felt natural, with each civilization contributing expertise toward common goals. Captain Vasquez, Emperor Kethvar addressed her directly. You commanded the engagement today. Assessment of cooperative military effectiveness. Excellent, Your Majesty. Joint training and integrated technology gave us decisive advantages. The Dominion fought as individual ships. We fought as a unified force. And crew performance? Outstanding. Human and Imperial officers worked seamlessly together. After 3 years of cooperation, we've developed genuine team effectiveness. The Emperor's form shifted to warmer colors. Then, the Empire's decision to learn from humans rather than fight them continues to prove beneficial. Director Chun smiled. And humans continue to benefit from Imperial knowledge and resources. The cooperative has achieved more in 3 years than either civilization accomplished in decades of separate development. As the conference continued, Elena reflected on the remarkable transformation that had occurred. The galaxy had been heading toward devastating war between humans and the Empire. Instead, both civilizations had discovered that cooperation could achieve what conquest never had: genuine security, prosperity, and technological advancement. The Dominion Alliance represented a test of those achievements. But Elena felt confident that species which had learned to work together would prove stronger than those committed to remaining separate. The galaxy was changing, and the Galactic Cooperative was leading that change towards something unprecedented in galactic history: voluntary civilization based on mutual benefit rather than domination. Outside the viewports, the stars of the outer rim shone with promise rather than threat. Humanity had shown the galaxy a different path, and the galaxy was learning to walk it together.